A number of years ago, someone wanted to have a meeting with Swami Kriyananda to talk about how to magnetize more young people to Ananda. That was maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, before the present generation had reached the age of independence and could therefore begin to manifest their own lives. There was, as we've talked about several times, there seemed to be there has been a skip generation cycle here, which apparently is sociologically documented, that certain attitudes, many different attitudes, are present in one generation and then skip a generation or two and then reemerge. There was a generational group that, as a collective, did not seem to have deep spiritual karma. Now there's a tribe of people in their 20s and in their 30s even, late teens, there's about a 15-year period there. It's a very spiritually minded tribe again. And that's very gratifying. Gratifying from the point of view of someone who's in the last quadrant of their Ananda life. And it's nice to think that, what I really feel when I look in the eyes of a lot of that tribe is that I feel like I'm looking at myself. And that makes me happy for this reason. I've had such a fun life. It's just been such a fabulous life. In Finding Happiness, the movie, Juliet, the journalist, asked Jyotish, what do you think about your life? And Jyotish said, it's been a fabulous life. All the things he's gotten to do, how expansive it's been. So when I see people at the age that I was when I started, being inspired and committed as I was at that age, I just sort of rub my hands together and say, you're going to have so much fun. This is going to be so much fun. It makes me very, very happy. And it makes me happy for the future of Master's work, which for his sake, for Swami's sake and for Master's sake, it's gratifying to me to think that the power that to see how the power that they've set in motion will be carried on in whatever way it's going to be carried on. But at that particular time, there was a lull. There was a generational lull. So we had this meeting with Swamiji, and I was amused because it was a very short meeting. Because the intention of the person who called it was to ask how we could tailor the message so that it would reach that generation. And this was not about whether to use Facebook or not, or anything of that kind of technology, which hadn't really come into its own. It was, how do we tailor the message? Swami answered simply and decisively, age is not a reality. Devotees are all the same. He said, devotees, no matter what age body they inhabit, no matter what culture, it's the same. He said, and the message is the same. Joy is within you. God and Guru are the answer to all seeking. And there was something about the way the question was being presented to him that he felt was necessary to nip in the bud. We don't change our message to match the culture. We can change our way of presenting it. We can be creative in the way we do it. Don't misunderstand me. Swamiji was by no means suggesting that we just keep on doing what we're doing. In fact, I remember very vividly an exchange of a conversation I had with Swamiji. As it happened, we were traveling in Houston, Texas, and it was just the two of us, and it was in the 70s, and we were trying to find our way in a lot of different areas. And Swamiji just said to me how frustrating it is for him when people do not apply their creativity to the situation, but rather either in a rote manner take his suggestions. As he put it, he said, he's just a lot of times just trying to get the creative energy going. And maybe the 8th suggestion that he made, that maybe the 9th one that someone else is going to make is really a much better idea. But they'll do just his idea because he said it. Now, that is a razor's edge. But nonetheless, he said what he really wants to see from people is that their creative response, their personal creative response to the inspiration they feel. Now, again, this is a fine line, and in other conversations about creativity and so on, I've talked about the fact that merely to do things differently is not necessarily to be creative, and to rebel against higher wisdom and higher truth in the name of, well, I'm part of this generation and I know better, is dicey at best. But to be deeply attuned and respectful and engaged and receptive, and then to be creative, is 100% of what's needed now. when Swamiji, when we first went to Italy, I say we because I was not part of that, but Swamiji's way of dealing with being in a new country was not to bring lockstep in everything we'd done before. He says, we're in a new place, we're in a new culture. We have to feel what's happening here. And then from that sense of what's happening here, then we'll know how to put this forward. When David and I were asked by Swamiji to move to Palo Alto and take on what was the beginning of the colony here, it had been established for a number of years by the hard work of others, and we stepped into it a little bit above the ground floor. But still, there was a lot more that was going to be possible, and we knew that. David said to Swamiji, what do you want me to do there? And Swamiji's response, he slightly exaggerated, but on purpose, how would I know, he said. He said, you're going to be on the scene. He said, you live there and feel it out for yourself, and then you tell me. Now, he was saying, keep in touch with me. Don't just go off on a tangent. You tell me. But apply your own understanding to it, and then hold that understanding up to the divine light of Swami's consciousness. And at that time, we could talk to him. Now we have to hold it up inwardly. Hold it up inwardly to Swami's consciousness and see how your thoughts relate to the vibration that he was putting forward. It's not the things themselves. It's loyalty to the vibration. The vibration can take many forms. Look how innovative Swamiji has been in the way he's expressed Master's teachings. And some people who have less imagination think he ought to do it exactly as Master did it. Swamiji says the question is not what did Master do, but what would Master do? Faced with this set of circumstances, what would Master do? And that's how Swamiji has always related to it. Faced with these circumstances, what would Master do? Faced with these circumstances, what would Swamiji do? How would he respond to this? And we can ask him inwardly. He's extraordinarily present now. Sir, in these circumstances, what would you do? How would you relate to this? How far should I reach out into their reality? At what point do I merely hold my own, even the form of what I'm doing, because to go too far beyond this would either dilute it for me, and I wouldn't be able to hold the magnetism, or it would be not a sincere expression of who I really am. The future of Ananda at this point is, well, I think it's wide open. I think it's epitomized by the movie Finding Happiness, which is, I think, a watershed moment, and I think that movie itself has buried within it. It's like the instructions for the future of Ananda. It's a series of vignettes, and each of those vignettes takes one thread of what Ananda could be. Dr. Peter and Purushottama, they're talking about the future of consciousness. Where are we going? And Puru's talking about it in terms of the yugas. Dr. Peter's talking about medicine and healing and about scientific understanding of what meditation does and why it does it. You could pull that thread out and you could go 1,000 miles on that thread without ever, exhausting the possibilities of it. And all of it would be a perfect expression of the teachings of self-realization. You could take Education for Life, of course, and pull that thread and circle the globe over and over again with that. You could take Yoga Postures for Self-Awareness. Of course, you could take Kriya Yoga, which is more self-evidently central to what we're doing, but really the others are also equally a part of Master's mission. And what Swamiji has said for years and years, and often he gives us an idea that doesn't manifest because he's trying to give us a concept. For years he's been saying, within our publications business, each book should be its own department. Each book should have somebody who does nothing but advocate for that book and find all the marketplaces for that book. Crisis in Modern Thought is the one because it's so dear to his heart, because of the answers it provides for philosophical error that people are enamored with now. But the message of Crises in Modern Thought is not practice Kriya Yoga, but it's the answer to meaninglessness, to nihilism, to finding meaning even in scientific discovery. Now, that's all part of Master's message, and therefore that's all part of the mission of Ananda. That's all part of the teachings of self-realization, whether or not Master's name is ever mentioned. The source of the ideas are less important than the consciousness-changing reality of it. Now, the caveat I put on this is that each person has to stand sincerely in their own strength. I myself, when we first moved to Palo Alto area, everybody said to me, you should go into corporations. Partly it was you can make a lot of money in corporations. It was just, everybody has certain ideas. Go on the Oprah Winfrey show and go into corporations. These are the two things that people say to you all the time. So I randomly went out into corporations, and I got someone to help me, and I actually got a few jobs. And they did pay extremely well. I mean, just for Ananda wages, they paid us staggeringly well. And I had a certain amount of success. But of course, I was in a corporation, and that corporation would not allow me to talk about God. What to speak of talking about Master or Kriya Yoga, that was out of the question. But I couldn't even talk about God. I could talk about greater reality, source of being, and various things like that. I did it for a while, and maybe I could have made a career, but it wasn't my strength. I felt myself like my magnetism was draining out of me, trying to do that. I couldn't find it as a sincere expression. And yet, David and Karen Gamow have done marvelous work, teaching thousands of people to meditate, from the county sheriffs to to other corporations. I'm not going to name all their clients, but it's a long list of very substantial companies. The U.S. Army, the U.S. Navy. I mean, just places you would never imagine. Straight down the line, they're teaching self-realization. Straight down the line, they're teaching the essence of Hong Sa, but they never put those names on it. But they have a great deal of power in that position, because it's their mission. It works for them. And I think what needs to happen now is that individual creativity, and I have to put that word again, attuned creativity, merely because you feel like doing it, don't be presumptuous. Merely because you feel like doing it and nobody else has done it and you want to do it, don't assume that it will help you spiritually to do it. That's my only condition on this. Keep in touch with your friends. Keep in touch with those wiser than you. And if you're getting disharmonious feedback for your ideas, take that very seriously. Don't just immediately say they don't understand. They might understand extremely well. But at the same time, be courageous. I say to people who want to be innovative and creative, go ahead, be very innovative. But if you're going to be innovative, you also have to be willing to be corrected. Because if you get too far out, somebody's going to pull you back. I mean, it's happened to me. It's happened to all of us. I remember Swamiji once said to me, "How are you, Asha?" I said, "I don't know, sir. How am I?" He said, "I'm worried about you." I said, "Me too." Because I was just pushing the envelope too far. And I wasn't centered anymore, and I could feel it coming. He just pulled me way back until I stabilized myself again, and then sort of found my way out. But it was fine for me to innovate, because I was also holding on and willing to be corrected. Or you just go out in a very orthodox manner. If that's where your strength is and that's what you have to give, then let's do that. But we don't know where Ananda is going. We didn't know when we started where Ananda was going. Swami could always see it. But as I was saying, finding happiness is sort of the key now. There's all these different ways that Master's work can express. And Master's mission of self-realization, he said himself, it's the religion of Dwapara Yuga. And that doesn't mean that Self-Realization Fellowship, Inc., as Swami often says, that this church, whether it's SRF or Ananda, is the Catholic Church of Dwapara Yuga. By definition, there is no Catholic Church of Dwapara Yuga. The concept of Catholic Church is a Kali Yuga concept. Dwapara is about energy. It's about consciousness. It's about individual inspiration. The whole essence of the dispute, honestly, between SRF and Ananda is whether or not inspiration can flow through individuals. Can it only flow through authorized channels, which SRF declared itself to be the sole authorized channel? Those are their exact words. Or can it flow by any disciple who disciplines themselves sufficiently, their egoic self sufficiently, to be in tune with that inspiration? And that really is the message of self-realization, is that this is the responsibility for our spiritual life is in our own hands. And Ananda belongs equally to every devotee. A friend made a suggestion to Swamiji once about, not fairly recently, he saw something that was going on. He wrote a letter to Swamiji about it. Swamiji circulated it among the colony leaders, and we all thought it was a really good point. And we all shifted over to what that man had suggested. He was a young man, early 20s. And afterwards he said, I'm so surprised. I just wrote that letter and everything shifted. I said, why would you be surprised? I said, you're as capable of channeling inspiration as anyone. And the other side of it is, Ananda belongs as much to you as it belongs to anyone. Now, that comes with responsibility. That comes with the responsibility to understand that, therefore, I can't just make it up. I have to attune myself with respect for those who are wiser than I. But after attuning myself with respect, I need also to trust where the energy is flowing through me. And then, step by step, don't throw yourself off a cliff. Swamiji's in the sense of don't put all your eggs in the basket of one little inspiration. Go step by step. Swamiji's guidance, instructions for true guidance is take it a step at a time. You may be truly inspired, for example, to go north, but maybe you're only supposed to go 2 blocks north before you make a turn directly east. But if you make a dogma of going north, this is what I feel to do, then your ego will block that next turn. So even when you feel strongly inspired to do something, always hold that inspiration up. Is this what you want me to do? Is this what you want me to do? And let's see where it goes. Let's see what's possible. Let's see where we find the energy. When I asked Swamiji just recently, practically the last question I asked him, where do you want me to work now? Because he told me to identify with the globe as my colony, essentially. Did you mean this? Did you mean that? He said, go where there's energy, is what he said. Respond to the energy. Well, I think that's what Ananda needs to do and has always done. Respond to the energy. Put out energy and see what kind of a response you can get. And then take it a step at a time, in concert and in conversation with others. But I think there's no limit, both to the forms and the reach. It's a planetary movement now. And that movement is about communities, of course, physical communities. It's about spiritual communities in the sense of a bond of spirituality that may or may not have a geographic form. And it's the application of those teachings to every area of life. Why do you think Swami wrote 140 books? Why do you think he went so far and even published those books under the name of Donald Walters? He's not thinking about, let's build this work. Or let me phrase it differently. What he means by this work is the totality of Master's teachings, and he's given us so much to work with. And let me add that last point, because that's very important. He's given us so much to work with. Don't think, well, Swami wrote books, now I'm going to write mine. Swami wrote music, now I'm going to write mine. Swami started communities, now I'm going to start mine. Yes, but you'll have a lot more power if you act as a disciple. And you'll have a lot more power if you serve the Guru rather than serving just your independent idea of it. We need to be very creative, following the example set by Swamiji of how to be creative. But we attuning ourselves to the vibration and building on what Swamiji has done. It's a little bit hard to explain the nuance of that, because I've begun to write books of my own. And, I've been teaching on my own, so to speak, for a long time, and I've developed my own style of doing things. But I've never developed it as my own style. I've developed it rather in trying to be an instrument of Swamiji and trying to feel his consciousness as I am able to express it. But it's not my own consciousness that I've been trying to express. It's been his consciousness through me. And you see the difference there? The difference there is everything. I'm trying very hard to build on what he says. And I reference him. I study his works. I read his books very carefully. I feel like I'm moving from the enormous foundation that he's laid, but allowing that foundation to assume the outline of the vibrations that I have. And in that way we work together. And every time I have moved outside of that, well, let's just say it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for anybody. The world usually fortunately, I consider it very fortunate, the world crashes in around my head right away. And I always know, oops, we were just moving out. We got carried away by our own energy. You know, listen, 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 come back to center. So where we are now is that Swamiji has laid a huge banquet in front of us of dishes that we can serve to others. And the more we work with his magnetism, creatively, sincerely, and in a dedicated way, the more this flower, which is Master, this flood of inspiration, which is Master, this extraordinarily beautiful thing, which is Ananda, the more it will just spread like wildfire, just a network of light all around this globe. And Haridas had the most beautiful way of turning a compliment when somebody would say to him, "Oh, that was such an inspiring Sunday service." He would say with so much enthusiasm, "Yes, something inspiring happened and I got to be there." And that's just the way we need to feel about it. Oh, something inspiring can happen and we get to be there. We're not causing it, but we get to be there and get to be there fully present. And then Master will really be able to use us, and Swamiji will really be able to use us, and who knows where it's going to go. I think Master knows. I think Swami knows. But we don't know. And the revolution, the adventure, the excitement of it, it's just right there in front of you. It's a different task than the one that my tribe had. But wow, what a glorious and interesting and endlessly creative task it's going to be. And we shall watch your careers with great interest to see what God inspires you to do, what fun we will have. I asked Swamiji so many years ago, "Sir, what is Ananda's mission?" And he answered, "To have fun." And then he defined fun. He said, "But you have to understand what I mean. To draw close to Divine Mother and then to share her love with all." So let's have a lot of fun in the next cycle of Ananda. A great adventure for God. God bless you.